Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. And welcome to the Summer 23 Release Readiness Live Admin Preview. My name is Ella Marks, and I'll be your host for today's broadcast. I'm on the Admin Relations team, a team that's dedicated to your success as an awesome admin. To help you be successful with the Summer 23 release, we're breaking down the top features and highlights for admins. So here's how this broadcast is going to work. First, you'll hear from product managers who will show their new features and demos. After we've gone through all the demos, we'll come back to you live for a Q&A. So take note of your questions and please post them on Twitter or in the Trailblazer community. If you have a longer question that may require a more thorough response, we ask that you please post it in the Trailblazer community so we can work to get you that thorough answer. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can in our time together today. Before we get started, this is just a reminder to please make any and all purchasing decisions based on products and features that are currently available. We have a packed agenda today. We'll cover user access, the Salesforce Mobile App, Flow, and even more highlights for admins and your users. So without further ado, let's dive into Summer 23. Cheryl, over to you.
Thanks, Ella. Hey, awesome admins. If we haven't met, I'm Cheryl Feldman. I lead the product area for user access, which includes features you all know and love, such as permissions, permission sets, permission set groups, delegated admin, sharing, and much more. I'm so excited to share updates on user access for their Summer 23 release. You prioritized it and we delivered. A few releases ago, you told us that having permission set groups and delegated admin was important to you, so I'm excited to announce that in the Summer 23 release, you are able to delegate the assignment of permission set groups. I'm also excited to announce that setting field level security on permission sets during field creation is now generally available. We won't force you to turn this on, but the feature is now available and fully supported. I'm really excited that you can see object permissions for each permission set when you hover over, so you can easily determine which access you want to grant a permission set without multiple clicks. Let's keep it moving with another highly requested feature on the Idea Exchange. In the summer release, you're now able to grant access to org-wide email addresses. Don't worry if you have configured org-wide email addresses at the profile level, that will still work as you have configured. We are releasing an updated version of User Access and Permissions Assistant. In the new version, we have addressed some of the performance and scale issues of the Reporting tab. With the new Reporting tab, no more manually searching for users. You'll be able to enter criteria to find the right users to report on. User Access Policies is now open beta. That means you can turn the feature on in user management settings. I also want to call out that if you are currently using User Access Policies as part of our closed beta, you will need to turn the setting on in user management settings to continue using the feature. In addition, we have made improvements to the criteria so you can select multiple roles and profiles. We have also added a new complementary feature called Access Change, which allows you to see right from user access policies the changes made to users by this particular policy and when. I will go into more detail in the demo. We are targeting GA for user access policies in the Spring 24 release, Safe Harbor. Here is a preview of the features we plan to have for GA. Now, let's jump into an exciting sharing enhancement. We are making investments to make sharing recalculation faster. You can enable faster account sharing recalculation for case and contact objects through a release update. And for opportunity, you can open a feature activation case with Salesforce support. You can find more details about this exciting improvement at sforce.com/faster account sharing. From a roadmap perspective, in the winter release, you will be able to self-enable faster account sharing on opportunities through release update, and in the spring release, production orgs will gradually be enabled. For the first demo, let's head over to Delegated Admin. As promised, in the last Release Readiness Live, we are giving Delegated Admin some much-needed love. Now, let's choose our first level support delegate group. Now, let's scroll down a bit and you will see a brand new section where you can see there are assignable permission set groups. Cue the confetti. I also want to mention that this feature won prioritization a few releases ago, So you voted on it, you prioritized it, and here it is. You'll see that I've already added some permission set groups that can be assigned by the delegated admins. Let's go ahead and add another by clicking on Edit and enabling the Finance Permission Set group for assignment. Now for our next demo, we are going to start an object manager on a custom object I created called Shipping History, where we will create a new field. Now let's add a new field called Shipment Date. Now, when I get to the page where I can assign permission sets, there is a new hover over where I can see what CRUD access has been enabled for each specific permission set, so I can quickly decide what type of access I may want to grant without having to click into each and every permission set. Now, on to the next demo of User Access and Permissions Assistant. If you aren't familiar with User Access and Permissions Assistant, we will make sure to link the blog post I wrote about this tool a few months ago. In the next version, when you click on the Report tab, you will see a brand new look and feel. Let's quickly look at all of the ways you can now filter on a correct set of users to report on. I do want to call out, in order to add more filters, we had to change the Report tab to only report on one permission at a time. To report on a permission, click on the permission type box and select the type of permissions you want to report on. I'm going to select user permission and then customize application. Now let's quickly run through the enhancements on the Report tab. We now show a count of how many records are returned. There is now a way to filter to only return active users, which we default on. You could also filter against name, department, license, profile, role, title, or username. In addition, we have made improvements to the speed in which results are returned. You can look forward to seeing this revised version in the next few weeks on our App Exchange listing. Now for our final demo, User Access Policies. Let's go back into Setup and head to User Management Settings, where we will scroll down and you will see the setting to turn on User Access Policies. Please note that if you were previously in our closed beta, you will need to turn this setting on to continue using User Access Policies. Now, once we do that, let's jump into a user access policy by typing in user access in the quick find and clicking on the setup tree item for user access policies. Now, let's click on the support agent user access policy. Now, let's click on edit and scroll down to the criteria section where you can see you are able to select more than one profile. We have also added the same for roles. You will see that I have several actions here. Now I'm going to activate the policy and set the trigger type. Let's go ahead and create a new user with the support rep profile. I've already quickly filled in some basic user information, and now I'm going to click Save. You will now see that the user was assigned 2 permission set groups, a public group, and a queue. Now let's quickly jump back into the user access policy and check out a new feature called Access Change. From each access change record, you can see the user that was impacted by the changes and which changes. The changes will also be saved in Setup Audit Trail, but this starts to bring the connection between user and their access changes. Now, I'm excited to hand it off to Andrew, who's going to share Salesforce Mobile App highlights for admins in the Summer 23 release.
Thanks, Cheryl. My name is Andrew Mangano, and I'm a product manager in mobile working on the Salesforce Mobile App. This is my first Release Readiness Live, and I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. The Salesforce Mobile App is the flagship mobile app of Salesforce, enabling the world's #1 CRM and Salesforce Customer 360 on mobile. Available for phone and tablet in the Apple App and Google Play stores, the Salesforce Mobile App enables the full CRM experience on your mobile device. Built on the Lightning platform, users have access to their Lightning apps, and admins can create custom apps and experiences for mobile users with Lightning App Builder. On top of that, we utilize the power of mobile devices with special capabilities exclusive to mobile. Access the camera for barcode scanning using Nimbus plugins, and custom push notifications using Notification Builder. Available GA now inside the Salesforce Mobile App. The Salesforce Mobile App is rigorously tested for compatibility and functionality on a number of top devices and is officially supported on iOS 15 and higher and Android 9 and higher. For your own development purposes, we offer simulator builds for you to rapidly build and test your apps. Lastly, we release the Salesforce Mobile App every 2 weeks, so you get fixes and improvements fast, which is essential for your mobile users. But as an admin, we know that sometimes you need more, and that's why we offer the Salesforce Mobile App Plus. Built on top of the #1 CRM app, the Salesforce Mobile App Plus offers more capabilities and tools for the admins, including enhanced mobile security, app branding and publishing, and our next-generation offline app solution. Available GA this summer, our next-gen offline experience allows for an LWC-based, 100% offline-capable app that allows your users to get their jobs done from anywhere, regardless of network connection. Enhanced mobile security allows admins like you to configure levels of response against risks like outdated operating systems or unapproved devices. It allows extra logging features for compliance and data logging that you may need for your most sensitive company data. And branding and app management enables you to brand, distribute, and manage your own listing of the Salesforce mobile app in third-party app stores. We know that you've been asking for a better offline solution in mobile. This summer, we're delivering on this request with the GA of offline apps in the Salesforce mobile app. Now admins can customize a tailor-made offline app built with LWCs to complete jobs entirely offline. This solution enables proper data resolution and syncing between offline and online data to make sure that your frontline workers are able to get their jobs done in any network condition. Configured with Briefcase Builder, you can assign objects for offline access, select which users and groups have access to which data, and create custom data filters to optimize the offline experience. Now admins have more controls about what users have access to offline, all in the Salesforce Mobile App Plus. But that's not the only thing we're excited to bring you in Summer 23. You've been asking for dynamic forms on mobile for a while through Idea Exchange, True to the Core sessions, the Trailblazer community, and more. In Summer 23, dynamic forms on mobile will be available in beta and can easily be enabled via setup. In this release, dynamic forms will be available on mobile for all the same objects that are enabled for the desktop experience. Let's take a look at a demo for dynamic forms on mobile. Here we are in the desktop Lightning experience. Let's head over to Setup to get dynamic forms on mobile enabled. In Setup, there is a section especially for the Salesforce mobile app. This is your home base for all things mobile, and we've made it easier than ever to manage your mobile app experience. On this page, you'll find our one-click enablement for dynamic forms on mobile. Now, let's head over to the page we want to update. This account page looks great, but there's a lot of detail here that we don't need for mobile. In Lightning App Builder, I'll switch to the mobile view and the Fields section. Here, I'm going to add a dynamic forms section just for mobile, which will have focused information just for mobile users. Then I'll add the fields I want, but here I'll add conditional visibility rules. This way, the mobile experience is going to be optimized to show only what's important. We'll click Save and go back to the account page. We go back to the page on desktop, but nothing has happened because this is dynamic forms on mobile. When we look at the same page on the mobile app, we see the optimized page, which changes field visibility based on record data. That's it for this demo. We're excited for you and your users to get their hands on everything we've been working on in the Salesforce mobile app in the Summer 23 release. That's all from me. Now I'm going to pass it over to Diana.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm Diana Jaffe, and I'm here representing Salesforce Flow, which, fun fact, now has our very own Salesforce mascot with Flo the flying squirrel. There are so many exciting new Flow features in the Summer 23 release, so let's jump right in.
First off, we know that as exciting as new enhancements in Flow are, the end of life for Workflow Rules and Process Builder is still looming large in many admins' minds. So here's the latest. In the Summer 23 release, you will no longer be able to create new Process Builder processes in your org. We already made the same change with Workflow Rules in a previous release, and now that we support Process Builder in our Migrate to Flow tool, we are making the same change with Process Builder. To put your mind at ease, you will still be able to edit existing processes. You can create new versions of them, and both activation and deactivation will continue to work. We also haven't blocked any APIs, so deployments or org migrations will also be unimpeded during this time. We've taken this step because while we know that fully migrating all of your process builder processes to Flow will take some time, we want to encourage you to first stop investing all net new automation in outdated tools. Many customers have already been able to effectively begin using Flow for newer automation while they still have existing automation in Process Builder. If we haven't convinced you by now to go with the flow and begin automating using Flow Builder, then reach out and let us know what it's going to take. Many of our best ideas, like Flow Trigger Explorer or the automated migration tool, or even our updated Flow content in Trailhead, came directly from your feedback and community contributions. We always appreciate it. And with that in mind, what I'm about to show you definitely came from some of that feedback. The Migrate to Flow tool now supports migrating your scheduled actions from Process Builder to scheduled paths in Flow. Here, I'm going to my Migrate to Flow tool and selecting a process to migrate. You'll note that one of my criteria groups contains scheduled actions, as noted by this column and checkbox. If I select it and migrate, then the resulting flow will include those same scheduled actions as scheduled paths. But we've heard from you that migrating the process itself isn't the end of the journey when it comes to scheduled actions in particular. Migrating automation that is scheduled to run in the future brings additional challenges, because what happens to any processes that I might have pending from my active process builder once I move it to Flow? Well, we've done additional work to automatically migrate those pending instances of those scheduled processes, all without any additional work from the admin. When I look at my time-based workflow page, I can see some scheduled processes I had pending. Once I activate the flow I just created and deactivate the original process, those pending processes will migrate themselves over to the corresponding flow the next time the associated record is edited, even if the change doesn't trigger the entry conditions. This can help you seamlessly migrate from Process Builder to Flow with minimal disruption to your end user's experience. So now I've migrated to Flow, what can I do next? We have a lot of really exciting enhancements in the Summer 23 release, and here's just a few of them. One item that the team is so excited about is our updates to the send email action inside of Flow. One of the top items we've had on the Idea Exchange for years is the ability to log that an email was sent to a record's activity timeline. Well, now that's available using the send email action inside of Flow. Here I have a flow triggering when an account is updated. Once I select my primary contact using a Get Records, I can easily configure my send email action to log this. First, I set the variable log email on send to true. To identify the email recipient, all I need to do is set the recipient ID field to that contact that I just got. I want this logged on the triggering account, so I set the related record ID field to the account ID. And now I'm all configured and ready to send an email that will be logged on my triggering account. But wait, what's this email going to look like? Well, that brings me to our other awesome new feature for the send email action. We now support Lightning email templates. So instead of configuring the rest of this email here, I can just do a Get Records to grab the template that I've already created and just fill out the email template ID field instead. Now I really am ready to go. When this flow is triggered, the templated email gets sent and the activity is logged on both the account record and the recipient contact record, where I can see the open status and follow up on any replies. One important caveat to these new email enhancements is that when either of them is enabled, the backing email service changes, which means that your limits will change too. Emails sent with this feature will use the general email limit instead of the daily workflow email limit, so please keep that in mind. So far, we've been looking at triggered automation, but Flow can do so much more. We are making major updates to screen flows as well. In the Summer 23 release, we have officially launched our new Choice Lookup component. which lets you display a filtered list of options as a lookup, complete with both automatically displaying the first 20 options when they click it and with dynamic type ahead to help your ScreenFlow users discover and find what they're looking for. The choice lookup component allows you to show a filtered set of options. So you could, for example, show a list of contacts specific to an account the user had already selected earlier in the ScreenFlow. We're also continuing to make enhancements to our data table component, the feature you were most excited about during our live show at Dreamforce last year. In this release, we focused on enhancing data tables' capabilities when it comes to large data sets. We've added the ability to configure a search bar, which allows your users to find what they're looking for within the table, and we've increased the number of records you can display, as well as included the ability to progressively load them via infinite scrolling. Data table just keeps getting bigger and better. Last, but certainly not least, Flow is forging new frontiers in this release when it comes to connecting to external systems. With our new HTTP callout action, you can connect to your external systems directly from Flow without having to call a developer. You can configure an HTTP callout to call a web service API directly from your Flow, but then we save that action behind the scenes so you can reuse it in the future. So if I configure a ScreenFlow to check a customer's credit score before approving a loan, I can do that directly in Flow. Then, if I want to add that same credit check to a triggered flow for small automatic approvals 6 months later, it's right there waiting for me. In the Summer 23 release, the ability to call GET methods is now generally available, but we aren't stopping there. We've already added the POST method as a beta, and we have big plans to enhance this feature in the releases to come. I don't have time to dig into all the details for how you can set up and get started with HTTP callout, but that's why it's a good thing we have our very own Flow Release Readiness live session next week on May 24th. Tune in then to see not only this callout in action, but to also hear about the very exciting future of dynamic reactive ScreenFlows. There's a lot of exciting stuff, so if you didn't get enough Flow now, or if you want more time for us to dig into all your questions, then mark your calendars for our follow-up session of Release Readiness Live.
I'm going to hand it off to Jillian Bruce to share even more release highlights for admins.
Thanks so much, Diana. I'm Jillian Bruce, and it's my job today to bring this thing home. I've got a grab bag of admin highlights that you haven't yet seen from Cheryl, Andrew, or Diana, so let's dig in.
So there are quite a few app building innovations coming with Summer 23 that I want to make sure you know about, starting with horizontal alignment for dynamic forms. This is going to make all of us control freaks so happy because now we can control exactly where our fields appear on those record pages, making sure they're lined up with the fields we want them to be. I'll show you this in action in just a second. We can also now clone custom apps. This is over 4,200 idea exchange points being delivered with this one feature. This is something you've been asking for, and this is going to be a huge time saver when we're really creating those custom experiences for our users. You also now have quick actions on related lists. In this open beta, you're going to make your users so much more efficient because they can actually take action on data right within the context of where they're working without having to go to another page. And we can now create really awesome Lightning Web components with the custom property editors in Experience Cloud. You're going to want to partner with your developers on this one because they're going to enable you to really get amazing visual experiences wherever you use screens in your Salesforce. And we've got analytics. All right, so there are a bunch of great analytics innovations coming with Summer 23. Here are the ones I want you to pay attention to, starting with the ability to post a dashboard in Slack. Great way to collaborate with your teammates in real time based on the data in Salesforce. We also now have 5 filters that you can put on a dashboard. This is going to save you so much time because now you don't have to clone a dashboard for each individual business unit. Those filters are going to enable you to reuse the existing dashboard a lot more than with just those 3 filters that we had before. We also now, this is fun, this is an open beta. You can now put rich text and images on your dashboards, which is going to make them even prettier and more interesting for your users to interact with. And for those of you who use sales forecasting, well,
we've now got BYOD. That's right. Bring your own data to sales forecasting. You can now add a column with external data right to your sales forecasts in Salesforce. Oh, and one more thing. For all of us admins, this is going to be great because now your account includes all clouds of Salesforce. So you can see all your Salesforce contracts in one place. Okay, now let's get into a demo where I can show you more of these great innovations in action. So we're going to start here with an idea that had over 4,200 points on the Idea Exchange. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, the ability to clone custom apps. So right by going into my app manager in setup, we'll now be able to see that for any custom app we've built, under the dropdown, we now have the new option to clone the custom app. And by hitting this, we're creating an entire new app based on all the things that we already built in that existing custom app. And we'll be able to go through this new app wizard. We'll be able to adjust the look and the feel and the different options of the app. But what's great about this is it's pulling over all the metadata that we've already built in that other custom app. So we don't have to start from scratch if we're building multiple apps that are pretty similar to each other. Huge time saver. The next thing I want to show you is something that's going to make all of us control freaks very happy. So when I open up my custom project page here, so this is just a custom object I built, you'll see that, this is something maybe familiar. There's some of those text fields that take up a lot of lines, which means that the fields appear in different places on the record page based upon how much data is in that other field. So I want to change this. I can go here into my Lightning App Builder, and in the canvas, this is where we can control our dynamic forms. And now we have the option to align fields horizontally. This is new with Summer 23, and this is great because now this means that no matter how much data is in the fields above or below a specific field, we can make sure that the fields are lined up exactly where we want them. So now you can see that our project start date and end date fields are going to line up no matter how much text or data is contained in that notes field. Pretty awesome. My control freak flag is flying high right now. So now we're going to show you some analytics innovations. This is Analytics Home. This Analytics tab is GA with Summer 23. It's a place where you can create and organize all of your reports and dashboards and CRMA if you use CRM Analytics. You can also create collections, which is a great way to share a group of different data with different people in your organization. You can share by user, group, or role. Now I want to throw it over to my MuleSoft friends because we've got some highlights in the MuleSoft world that I think are going to be pretty important. So we've got composer error handling and RPA Universal Identity Access Management. Take it away, Muleys.
As with any process, the unexpected sometimes occurs. It may be due to network disruption, systems become unresponsive, or data integrity issues. There could be many others. Now you can better handle errors in your composer flow and further automate your process. Let's review a simple use case. When a high priority case is created in Salesforce, we want to create a Jira issue so that the engineering team can immediately work on the case and provide timely support to our customers. We also want to send the engineering team a Slack message to notify them of this high priority issue. We have noticed that sometimes Composer fails to create the issue in Jira. Without a proper way to handle this error, the case may be delayed or lost, and this will have a negative impact on the response time and customer satisfaction. Let's see how we can better handle this kind of error in the Composer flow. Here is the Composer flow. Add a new error handler step after step 1. The error handler has two sections, the watch and the on error. You can move or create any steps in the watch section to watch for errors. When an error occurs in the watch section, it will go to the on error section for processing. You can configure, add, or move steps into the on error section to handle your error. You can have multiple on error sections in one error handler. If you do, you can add condition to run that branch of the on error. You can also set the after running condition to either continue or stop the flow after the on error section is run. Let's move the create issue in Jira step into the watch section. Now let's configure the on error section. Let's set the condition to none so that it will run whenever there's an error creating a Jira issue. Let's set the after running to stop so you will not send a notification to the engineering team and not update the case with the Jira issue ID. Do note that setting after running to stop will also mark this run as failed in the run history. Let's add a step in the on error to post a Slack message to the support team. Next, let's update the case record in Salesforce to indicate that it failed to create an issue in Jira. Now let's save and activate this flow. Let's create a new Salesforce case. In order to generate the Jira error, I'm going to leave the description empty. This is mapped to the Jira summary, which is a required field. When Composer is triggered and run, the run history will mark this run as failed. You can see the Slack channel with the case and error information. You can also see the case record with the custom field Jira issue ID updated to fail. See how easy that was? Now you can too add error handling to your flow.
Today, when customers buy the automation bundle, they get 3 sets of login for each of the products in the bundle. RPA's current identity system does not fully support modern authentication and authorization protocols such as OpenID Connect and OAuth that customers come to expect of from any enterprise software. With RPA's IAM modernization project, we intend to unify the login experience of customers by providing a single login for AnyPoint and RPA. When a customer buys the automation bundle, they receive one email that will log them into AnyPoint, from where they can navigate to RPA without the need to authenticate again. We will unify Composer login in a future release. Further, customer can manage their entire users and access using AnyPoint's access management feature, providing a single place to govern all of their users and provide access by a centralized IT team. We are really excited for these changes as it sets us on the path to unify our products and also gets us closer to our hyper-automation vision.
And that wraps my admin highlights section, which means now it's time for the fun part, Q&A. Take it away, Ella.
Thanks so much, Jillian, and welcome everyone to our Summer 23 live Q&A for the admin preview. For the Q&A today, we are joined by our incredible product managers to answer your questions around user access, the Salesforce Mobile App, Flow, and MuleSoft Composer and RPA, and even more. I see so many folks on Twitter and in the Trailblazer community sharing their excitement. So thank you so much to Alex and Elizabeth and Mark, Rebecca, Steve Mo, for all of you for sharing your excitement about all of these amazing features and tuning in and joining us today. Now, before we dive into your questions, just a quick reminder, you can still post your questions on Twitter or in the Trailblazer community using the hashtag Salesforce Live. That's where we're looking for your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can in the broadcast today. So without further ado, I think it's time to make a splash with Summer 23 and dive into these questions. All right, so Larry, our first question is for you. Are you ready? Awesome. Okay, the question is, creating a field and granting access via permission sets is that only available with user access and permissions assistant?
I'm sorry, can you repeat this question?
Of course. So this question comes from TJ on Twitter, and TJ wants to know if creating a field and granting access via permission sets is only available with the user access and permissions assistant.
So the user access and permission assistant is more to help you troubleshoot. And then as you're creating new fields, what we're going to do is allow you to then choose the permission set instead of the profile, but you have the choice as an organization to choose one or the other.
Right. Thank you, Larry. I'm going to stick with you because we have a few more questions for you here. And the next one comes from Christopher in the Trailblazer community. And Christopher wants to know if he has to download the new user access and permissions app. If he's already using the assistant and wants to use the new one, will it be updated like a managed package, or does he have to uninstall the old one and install the new one?
So I want to thank you first for using the user access and permission assistant. It is a managed package, so you will get all of the upgrades that as we're making it. There's no need to uninstall and reinstall.
Thank you, Larry. And one more for you before we jump over to another topic. This one comes from Mark on Twitter. And Mark wants to know, Mark says, the user access policy functionality looks interesting. I'm a bit confused though. Is the user access policies just for base level permission settings for all users? I'm particularly curious on how this relates to sharing rules if it does.
So I think the beauty of user access policies is we're trying to allow you to easily grant access. So you see that with the permission set group, but how this relates to sharing is more on the public groups. So your sharing rules, they often grant access through to a certain public group. And by creating user access policy, you can then say, based on some criteria, add these users to a certain public group.
Great. Thank you so much, Larry. Let's jump over and take a few questions for you, Diana. Thank you for joining us once again for the admin preview.
Always happy to be here.
Okay, we have a few questions for you. So let's just dive right in. The first one is around flow error handling. So in Apex, we can use add error to nicely throw an error and do complex data validation. In a flow, there's no way to do this. This was asked for at True to the Core. Can you give us an update on what's happened since then?
Absolutely. So this is, I would say, our fastest growing idea on the Idea Exchange. It was only filed a little over a year ago, and it already has over 16,000 points. It was asked for not once, but twice at the True to the Core at TDX. And so once we finished up the summer release that we just talked to you about, the engineering team did go and look into that in more detail. And hopefully we will be able to deliver add error for record triggered flows in safe harbor, the upcoming winter release, if everything goes well, of course, subject to forces of nature and all of that. But it is something that we're hoping to get out in the next release if all goes well. So thanks to everyone who has voted for that, advocated for that. I think the presence on the Idea Exchange really helped set the priority there. So thanks to the community for speaking up, and we are listening and working on it.
Thank you so much, Diana. And we saw a lot of Idea Exchange features in this release.
Yeah,
so
we also had the email. I mean, that is our fastest growing, the add error, but our longest standing and most was about email activities. I think that is at 81,000 or so Idea Exchange points, which blows everything else we had on process automation out of the water. And so we're super excited to deliver that in the summer release.
That's awesome. Thank you, Diana. And speaking of ideas with a lot of points in the Idea Exchange, Andrew, I know there was Dynamic Forms for Mobile was released this summer 23. Can you tell us a little bit about what objects are available for Dynamic Forms on mobile?
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely want to highlight this. So it is in the beta phase, but it is available via one-click turn on in setup. And so for Dynamic Forms on mobile, which you've been asking for years and for a long time and at True to the Core sessions, that will be available for every object that's available for desktop. So mobile catches up to where desktop is today, and then going forward stays in line with it. So anything that's available for Dynamic Forms on desktop will be available for Dynamic Forms on mobile.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And I just have to read this quote from Lindsay in the Trailblazer community, who says, "Can I just scream from the rooftop about this release? Loving the updates and just so excited for Dynamic Forms on mobile." So thank you so much, Andrew, for all of you.
So much love here. We've been really trying to get it out, and we're excited to bring it to you. We know what you can do with it.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Let's dive into our next question. This one comes from Twitter. Joelle asked, and Larry, I think this one is for you. Permission set groups in delegated admin. What if the permission set group requires a permission set license? That requires giving full manage user permission.
So our hope is that a delegated admin doesn't need the permission set license in order to still grant access. So hopefully it just works as you expect, as opposed to needing another license. Please let us know if that's not working as you expect through submitting a case.
Thanks, Larry. Diana, let's pop back to you for a few questions. The first one coming from Jenny in the Trailblazer community. And Jenny asked, has the limit of 5 flows per flow type increased for Professional Edition? We have more than that currently with our process builders and workflows.
So it hasn't currently. We are looking at addressing this in the winter release, but we're going to address it sort of at the customer level rather than changing the license. So if you are one of those impacted customers, look for communications in the next release where we'll start to do it. If you're blocked right now, you can reach out. We've let support know if someone comes in with this problem because they still need to use workflow rules, that they can get those re-enabled for the time being. But again, we are looking to enable those customers, but we won't be changing the overall limits for new purchasers of the editions going forward.
Thanks, Diana. Okay, our next question here comes from Mark Jones in the Trailblazer community. And Mark asks, with all the enhancements coming to list views and Lightning App Builder in general, will we see the addition of nested sorting coming somewhere down the line? I often have cases where I'd like to sort by multiple fields, like case status and last modified date.
Well, I don't think we have a PM on directly for that area. So I will be the cover for that and say that I'm sure that that is a wonderful idea, Mark, and you always have fantastic ideas. Put it on the Idea Exchange. Let's get it prioritized. I think I don't know anything specifically about that area, but I think that's a wonderful use case. So definitely put it on the Idea Exchange, and I will also happily find out which PM is the kind of in charge of that area, and gladly, get that question to them as well. So thank you for tuning in, Mark. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Jillian, and thank you, Mark. And we do have quite a few questions around this as well, so we will make sure to follow up and get those questions answered if we don't have folks on the broadcast today. All right, so going back to the Trailblazer community, our next question comes from BB. And Diana, I think this one is for you. Is there a limitation for the parent and child when it comes to the HTTPS call out in Flow?
I don't know if there is. So that might be a good question to ask Mark DeLurgio, who's going to be on the call on the Flow one, who's the PM for that going forward, and the Flow Release Readiness Live, which is next Wednesday. So I'll follow up with the team and try to get an answer on that. Or if you want to come see the full demo of HTTP callout with all the goodness there, then also check that out on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific.
Thank you, Diana. And for folks who may be interested in tuning in, can you give us a little more of a little snapshot or sneak peek on some of the other features you might be covering during that broadcast?
Yeah, so HTTP callout is one of the things we're going to go into a lot more detail on. The other thing that we're going to have a demo of in a lot more detail is on reactive screens and the future of that. So it's some stuff that's still in beta or that's coming, but it's really going to, I think, completely change the game for screen flows. So that's another area that we're going to dig into in a lot more detail in that broadcast. So definitely come if you're a ScreenFlow fan and want to see where we're going next, because it's going to really change the game.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Diana. For our next question, Sai, I'm going to jump over to you. Thank you for joining us for your first admin preview broadcast.
Excellent.
The question I have for you is, when will Composer error handling be GA? And what is kind of the difference between the current beta and GA?
So Composer error handling will be GA in mid-June, about June 12th. And the main difference, the feature between beta and GA is the same, but we have fixed some known bugs and bugs between the beta and GA. So main functionality will be the same. And the beta currently, we have found and fixed all the known bugs that we know. So the current beta and the GA will be the same version, except we'll be removing the tag beta. So,
okay. Thank you, Sai. And I have one more question for you. And it's, can I use more than one error handling block in a flow?
Yes, you can. You can use more than one error handling block, including nested error handling, just like a Java or Apex programming, and to watch and handle different types of errors and handle them differently. So yes, you can.
Thank you so much, Sai. Jyoti, let's hop over to you as well. Thank you as well for joining for your first admin preview broadcast. Really appreciate you hopping on. The question I have for you is, can I use RPA from Salesforce Flow?
Yes, the answer is yes, absolutely. You can. All the Flownatics out there, if you want to use the RPA functionality, you can simply call it out with the external service feature as you would do for any APIs that are running on MuleSoft. So just recently, we released even another update that makes it even easier for you to connect your MuleSoft Anypoint org with Salesforce. And with that, you can now easily browse any of the RPA processes that are also running as APIs and include them as part of Flow. So that makes it super easy for you to do all these automations that require you to reach out to any external systems that actually may not have APIs, and you use RPA to automate that. So I'm really excited and want to see all of you using these products together.
I'm really excited too on the Salesforce Flow side that these worlds are coming together.
Absolutely.
This is amazing. And for folks who are using single sign-on with Anypoint already today, what do they have to do to connect their RPA app as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the new IAM feature, as we said, the RPA app is now much closer to Anypoint. So if you have a single sign-on enabled for Anypoint, you can now extend that for your RPA users as well. So you can see now the RPA specific permissions and even privileges coming into Anypoint. So all you need to do is just create the specific roles or teams as you would do in Anypoint, and then connect them to your Active Directory or Okta, whatever you use for your single sign-on. And that means now the RPA users don't have to use their own local identities, but they can now actually use their single sign-on. So just increases your security and compliance profile overall in the organization. So I'm really excited with that.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much for answering those questions. Let's pop back into the Trailblazer community for a question from Christian. And Christian is asking about horizontal field alignment. Is horizontal field alignment only available when using dynamic forms? Jillian, do you have an answer for this one?
Yes, I will. And I forgot I had to put on my summer shades for this. Yes, the answer is yes. Horizontal alignment is only available for dynamic forms. The dynamic forms functionality enables things like being able to customize where the fields appear, or which fields appear. And so you need that in order to then align them. So yeah, and if you got more questions about that, feel free to continue to expand upon what your use case is and what you're looking for. But yeah. For all of you control freaks, you need to use dynamic forms in order to really control where those fields appear.
Thank you, Jillian. And would you say that this release is so bright that you need shades?
There's so much amazingness coming through with summer 23. Yeah, you got to protect from all the awesome. You need a filter, and a little low code love filter is what we're all about here on the admin preview for Release Readiness Live.
Awesome. Thank you, Jillian. Let's go to our next question from Stacy in the Trailblazer community. And Stacy's asking, with my current email sends, do I need to bring in a new component, or will this release make it available for me to add to the activity history without having to recreate the component?
So that will depend on if you're using email alerts or the send email action in Flow. So the activity history is only added to the send email action in Flow, and that's something that you should be able to enable on the existing component by changing that field log email on send or send log on send or something like that to true. But do keep in mind, as we mentioned before, that the limits will be different. So if you are going to just enable that on an existing component, just be aware that enabling that will change the limits that it uses.
Thank you, Diana. Let's stick with the Trailblazer community here for a second and answer a question from Lily. Andrew, this one is for you. The question is the summer 23 mobile security ability to control who users can access the corporate mobile phone related to mobile device tracking?
Yeah, so that's a great question and a very specific question. So you mentioned about related to device tracking, not specifically. It's a little bit different in how it's related. And so I'd love to hear more about the device tracking thing that you're interested in. What I would point you to is we do have a very robust security feature for our enhanced mobile security that has a lot more control for admins around some of the device monitoring that you're thinking of. I wouldn't say tracking specifically in that sense. But it is basically to limit some inappropriate usage for certain user licenses. So that's what that feature delivery is actually about. Great question, very specific, and I love paying super close attention to it.
So thank you, Andrew. And actually, there's a follow-up here. With SSO enabled, can the summer 23 mobile security work?
Yes, it can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lily, for asking your question. And remember, make sure to follow up with those specific details. Anybody posting in the Trailblazer community, if you have a more specific question or use case, make sure to put those details in and we can try to follow up after the broadcast. All right, our next question from the Trailblazer community comes from Brandon. Diana, this one is for you. Going back to Email Composer in ScreenFlow, will the update to send email action, is there any chance we will see the ability to compose an email in a ScreenFlow with the Lightning email template? We have a process where we need to customize the content in the email that we present through a ScreenFlow.
So trying to figure out if you're looking for a component to edit an email before in the ScreenFlow, or if we're talking about just dynamically generating an email based on what's going on in the ScreenFlow. I can't quite figure that out from the question.
I think it might be compose.
Okay. I would say either way, I don't think there's any imminent plans to do that. The ScreenFlows do support kind of custom components and things like that. So it's definitely something we could look at, but I know we have some other high priority work and components. So if it's looking for some kind of email composer component, I don't think that's high on the list. If on the other hand, you're talking about more sort of dynamic content, there are some ways to do that currently with Flow, but not to edit the email template directly inside of Flow. You will have to go out and do that via the template interface in the objects picker. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Diana. And for everybody tuning in, if you haven't posted your question yet, there is still time to use that hashtag Salesforce Live and post on Twitter and in the Trailblazer community. That's where we're looking for all of these questions that you're asking. So keep them coming. We're here to answer as many as we can during the broadcast. So with that, our next one, Jillian, is for you. Images count towards component limit. Will images and text count towards the 20 component limit on dashboards?
Great question. So now that we have rich text and images available to use in dashboards, we're calling all of those components widgets. So previously, right, we had a limit of 20 components. Now there's going to be a limit of 25 total widgets. So that includes, 20, it says, well, technically it's up to 20 charts and tables, 2 images, and then 25 rich text widgets. So gives you a fair amount to work with there, but it sounds like the max is 2 images, and then, as many rich text widgets as you want. So have a widget party, but your limit is 25.
Awesome. Thank you, Jillian. Right. Our next question, Larry, I think this one is for you, and it's around adding permissions to managed package permission sets. And Andrew's question is, when we have a managed package permission set and add a custom field to an object in it, we have to make a new perm set to go along with the managed one. This is not scalable as we have over 1,200 custom objects in our org. Can there be some way to use the same style as a perm set group to pair a managed permission set with a custom permission set to add it and be consumed in a permission set group?
Wow. Okay. I think I might have to answer this one offline. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No worries.
To you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew, for asking your question. Anything we don't answer on the broadcast today, we'll do our best to follow up in the Trailblazer community. I love all the detail in these questions too. So keep them coming.
Yeah.
All right. Diana, our next question for you comes from Cassandra in the Trailblazer community, and it's around migrating classic email templates to Lightning templates. And Cassandra wants to know, will classic templates stay forever? And is there a need to migrate them to Lightning template? Sounds like if I want to use it in Flow, I need to migrate it. And is there a migration tool to move classic templates to Lightning templates?
I don't know. I'm not the expert, and it may be that we also support classic in Flow. I'll have to double check on what we support in Flow. I know the Lightning ones are the go forward plan, so not sure on that, but I think we'd have to get an email PM in here to talk more about the future of each template.
Right, yeah, we'll follow up on that one in the Trailblazer community as well. Right, Andrew, our next question is for you on dynamic related lists for mobile. So we love that dynamic forms will be coming to mobile, but what about dynamic related lists for mobile? Are there any plans to bring this functionality?
Dynamic related lists? No. That's a super exciting question. I love that you're asking about it. And I love that, safe harbor, I have good news. And that is on our roadmap. And it's what we are actively working on. And it is related, pun intended, to some of the work that we're doing for dynamic forms. And you should hear some announcements in some of the upcoming events and hopefully in some of the marketing that's coming. But it's something that we are actively working on, and we should have more details to share later, though unfortunately not in this release.
Thank you, Andrew. It's exciting to hear that things are coming now. That's super great. All right, our next question, let's stick with you for one more, comes from Stacy in the Trailblazer community. And Stacy is asking about mobile user management. And Stacy asked, with the retirement of Salesforce A, it has become a challenge to manage users on the fly from a mobile device, such as urgent account deactivations per HR. Will a user management be supported in the summer 23 mobile enhancements?
That's a great question. And so we've really thought a lot about that with with the retirement of Salesforce A, and bringing some of those features into the Salesforce mobile app. We're looking to explore some of that functionality. So right now we do not have that, but it is something that we're working on. And so what I would love is that if you go into the Trailblazer community, we have a new community just for mobile and for the Salesforce mobile app. And so if you ask your question there, we'll respond to you, and we'd love to hear more about specifically what you need and what you can do. And then we'll figure out when we can take care of those things that you need.
Great, thank you so much, Andrew. All right, our next question is, let's see here, Trailblazer community. This one is for Larry, and it's, can we condition user access policies on a multi-select pick list? Runs and hides.
I also need to get back to you. Yeah.
Gaurav, how dare you select? We use multi-select pick lists.
We'll make sure to follow up with you on Twitter on that one. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Diana, there's a question for you on the Trailblazer community. Is there any limit on the number of flows per object? What's the max number of flows per object or per org?
So I'm guessing this is about record triggered flows per object. So there is no limit. However, there is a limit on the total number of active flows. We don't limit by object or by type of flow, like screen flow or auto launch flow. We just do an overall limit on active flows, which I believe is 2,000. So workflow rules did sort of an object by object limit, but we do something different in flow because we have so many other types. So, and if you're asking about best practices on how many flows should be per object on a record triggered basis, there's a really awesome Automate This webinar that is on YouTube, where we have different admins come in and advocate for whether they think there should all be in one flow, whether they should be in multiple flows, subflows, and we talk kind of through the pros and cons. So if you want to dig into the topic on a best practices place, that's a great place to get some real world tips and tricks.
Right, thank you, Diana. Our next question comes from the Trailblazer community, and it's around the end of life of permission sets on profile. So Larry, I think this one is for you. And the question is there any tools Salesforce is going to provide to support the end of life of permission sets on profile?
So we are, I think our Trailblazers have seen a blog post regarding, we're trying to move away from permissioning using profiles. And we're moving to having people use permission sets and permission set groups. And to help with that, we have user access and permission assistant to help you analyze how you've configured your org. And we also have the user access policies, which helps to automate that type of assignment. I think that this is something that we have some blog posts on, and we definitely can help more and share that as well in terms of how we make that transition easier for you.
Great, thank you, Larry. And as you mentioned, we do have a lot of blog posts on this. After today's broadcast, we can make sure that we share those out again, so you can check out those best practices. All right, Larry, let's stick with you with a few more questions. You mentioned faster account sharing recalculation and how you're planning to enable this in all sandboxes gradually, and then you plan on doing this in production gradually. Can you share why you're doing this or any gotchas we should be aware of?
Yeah, so this is a bit interesting. Most of the time we have a release, everything just happens during that 5-minute window or soon after. So on that release weekend, everybody gets an upgrade. And so this is a little different in terms of the faster account sharing recalculation. We're actually going to enable this first in Sandbox and then in production. And the whole process is, we know there are large enterprises or customers with a lot of data, especially the way they configure sharing, such that things just take a long time, especially when you're doing a mass realignment on who owns which accounts. And Salesforce, we maybe are an example of that, where things can take quite a long time as we, do an annual realignment. So we want to make things better for everyone. And in order to do that, we're enabling this in Sandbox first. And that way, if you weren't on the Admin Release Readiness Live, you didn't read our release notes, you'll wake up one day and go, whoa, I didn't know about this. This feature's turned on in my Sandbox. And so that's how we're trying to prepare everybody for this. And then we're going to do that subsequently in the production environment with the following release.
Thank you so much, Larry. And one more question for you around faster account sharing recalculations, specifically around the case and contact objects. How does this impact performance for admins and for end users?
So for performance, like I was saying, for our Salesforce org, we noticed that it took quite a long time just to create one sharing rule. Hopefully it's nowhere near as bad for you, but for Salesforce, when we were testing this, it took us 15 minutes to create a single sharing rule on account, which is probably way too long. So we turned the feature on, and then after that, it took 3 minutes. So we could see a drastic improvement. I'm not promising you the same improvement. It really depends on how your org configuration and size is. But with that being said, we all want our admins to be more productive, and that's partly why we're, enabling this for everyone. So that's from an admin perspective. In terms of like creating sharing rules, there's a host of other things that we can share a short 15-minute video on. But the end user experience, it's going to be about the same unless you have large data skew, large parent-child skews. So you have one account, and let's say you have 100,000 or 1 million cases or contacts associated to that single account. Now, we recommend a 1 to 10,000 ratio, but we know there's many customers that go over that threshold. So if you're one of those customers that have those specific scenarios, your end users may see some faster performance in some scenarios. But to simplify it, we don't advertise that as the main reason to move.
Thank you so much, Larry. Diana, let's go over to you. This is less of a question, but an idea coming from Mark Jones on Twitter. And Mark notes it would be quite cool to maybe include a date or time component in the send email action for Flow to allow for scheduled email sending.
I do like that idea a lot. I will say a lot of our scheduled requirements in Flow are broader than just the email. So a lot of times we try to externalize schedule related things so that if you want to send a Slack message or some other kind of notification or do other kinds of automation, it's available across there. So if you wanted to send an email based on like a due date on a record, you could use scheduled paths in record triggered flows. They let you do that. I will also say coming up in the next few releases, I don't know exactly when, but we are looking to improve our pause element or wait element to make that a little bit simpler and more dedicated and performant for certain use cases. So that is an area that we're looking at investing in long term, not necessarily directly within that send email, though I love that idea, but more sort of external for automation across Flow.
Thanks, Diana. And let's stick with you for one more question coming from Janelle and the Trailblazer community. And Janelle wants to know, any plans to increase the 5 email address limit and send email action and flow?
Not at this time. We would love to, but there isn't at this particular moment in this release. So it's something we can potentially look at for the future.
Thanks, Diana. Andrew, let's jump over to you with a question on reactive dynamic forms. And the question comes from Caleb, and it's, are there any plans to have formulas calculate in real time when editing dynamic forms, like with reactive screen flows? This way, fields and other components would display or hide based on a formula calculation as a user populates fields before hitting save.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And even though, I'm a product manager in mobile, but I work very closely with the records team and the Lightning platform team and the UI platform. So I'm going to change hats here for a second. So excuse me, putting on that other hat. The records experience is the core functionality when we think of Salesforce and admins. And so what I really want to highlight with this question, this is a fantastic example of really leaning into that core experience and developing on this platform. So your question about reactive forms is really, really important, but I want to take it a step further. So you were thinking about sort of like the next iteration of dynamic forms about real time. But really what we're thinking about for the platform, the records page, and this is what we are innovating on, developing on top of. So we always think of trust and performance and working, right? So that we don't do any harm for that. But what I would answer your question with is leapfrogging. So where does the forms experience live in the future? What does it look like in a world with generative artificial intelligence? And so what I encourage you is to pay attention to what's coming and what some of the future announcements are over the next months and weeks. So while a reactive dynamic forms might be interesting and useful, thinking about where record pages go in the future and bringing that forward is really what we're focusing on. So buckle up for what it looks like in the future, but that is a great, great example of how we're thinking about improving that core functionality of the records page and experience.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for putting on your different hat there for just a moment.
I'm switching back.
Great, we've got you back. We did get a lot of questions around dynamic forms in the Trailblazer community. I don't think we can answer all of those today, but we will work with the product managers to follow up. So if you asked a question and we don't have someone to cover it on any of the topics that we're covering today, we will make sure to get you that answer in the Trailblazer community. So thank you all again for asking your questions. All right, so back to our questions here. Andrew, let's stick with you for one more. The question is, how is the new offline capability in the Salesforce mobile app different from the old feature?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm super thrilled to talk about it. So offline for the mobile app, for the Salesforce mobile app, has been a hugely requested feature for our customers for capability, especially as they lose maybe internet connection. And the previous experience was really a lot more legacy and was built out with some really basic functionality. The new experience was built from the ground up around LWCs and is really on our next generation tech stack. So it is definitely future facing, but it was built with all of the intricacies of offline in mind. So what happens with data clashes or different edits, all of that gets resolved and is ensured that it works. So really it is completely built out in a fully functional way instead of being just sort of tacked on top of the experience. So it is extremely powerful and really helps your users get their job done under any circumstances and any connectivity. So that's really the main difference.
Thank you so much. And I'll actually ask you one final question here. Are there plans to support additional objects on dynamic forms on mobile?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so in the next release, and what we're working on actively now, is to bring, again, safe harbor, but more than 1,000 additional standard objects onto dynamic forms, again, for desktop and mobile, available on both at the same time.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Larry, let's jump back over to you for a few questions around permission sets and profiles. Are you ready?
All right. Let's do it.
Awesome. The first question is, why can't we have both permission sets and profiles in the field creation wizard?
Well, in some sense, we allow you to choose within settings. So you can choose to only use profiles, but we don't have on that page, there's no simple toggle to say, oh, I want to use profiles right now versus I want to use permission sets right now. So.
Thank you, Larry. And the next one for you is around delegated admin. Will other features come to delegated admin?
I think we definitely want to continue to invest here. So we would love to hear more of your feedback on the ideas exchange. And if the post is already there, continue to comment and have others who also feel the same way to vote too.
Thank you so much, Larry. Jillian, let's pop over to you with a question around our rich text and images. How do I get access to add rich text and images to the dashboards?
Well, so right now, since it is a beta release, it's only available for unlimited. So you can, if you have unlimited edition, you should be able to have access to it. As we know, with betas, the plan is to test it out, and then hopefully you'll see it in more editions and coming closer to GA and subsequent releases. Forward-looking statement, safe harbor. I have no visibility into the roadmap of that team, so I did not promise anything on their behalf, but just knowing how these things go. So yeah, if you don't have unlimited edition, you don't get to play with it yet, but stay tuned, get ready, start ideating of all the beautiful things you're going to do with your dashboards, because I'm sure you're going to get access to it in a subsequent release.
Thanks so much, Jillian. Diana, let's go to you for a few more questions. The first one is, are those new email enhancements also available for email alerts?
So email templates have already been supported in email alerts for several releases, so that is existing. The log as activity history is not. That is only available in the send email action.
Thank you. And our next question for you is, how can I see whether my pending scheduled actions have been migrated to Flow?
So a great way to do that is to look at the time-based workflow queue. So it's a page in setup, time-based workflow, and that shows your workflow rules, your process builder processes, and your flows and scheduled paths, all of them, so you can see which one a specific object is mapped to as they're being migrated over. So that's a great place to look and track. You can also administer them, delete them there, etc.
Great, thank you, Diana. All right, the next question for you comes from Brandon in the Trailblazer community, and it's around daily limits for email. With making the send email action more functional and visible, will the daily limits still apply to emails sent by Flow? And is there a chance we might see an increase to the limit in place today?
No, and actually, depending on what feature you're using, it might decrease a little bit. So that is, it's also, check it out in our release notes for all the details. But if you're not using the new features, it uses the daily workflow email limit. And then it uses, if you do use those, the general daily email limit, I believe it's called. So at this moment, there's no particular plans to increase those, but I think open to rousing community feedback on that topic. So at this point, yeah, it will be different. And that's basically because we have to use a different backing service in order to get those newer features in there, which is very exciting, but it means that that service is checking against a different limit. So that's just why that changes in there. But check out our release notes for all the nitty-gritty details there.
Thank you so much, Diana. We have a few questions coming in on the Trailblazer community and on Twitter around our dashboards and sharing your dashboards in Slack. Similar to our questions on dynamic forms, we will work with the product managers to follow up there, since we don't have someone on this live Q&A to answer those questions today.
Yeah, unless you want to put Diana on the spot and ask her about creating a flow to automatically post a dashboard into Slack.
Sure, it's possible with the power of Flow. No, I have no idea. I'm afraid. I don't know. But I believe Flow can do anything if you believe hard enough. So maybe someday.
If you believe it, you can achieve it. I think that's what they say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I look for our last few questions here on Twitter and in the Trailblazer community. We've covered a lot today. Jillian, how can admins think about preparing for releases? Like, what are some of your top resources and things you do to prepare?
Well, you're all watching this right now. This is the number one thing that you can do to prepare, because what you've got right now is, I mean, I'm not a product manager. Clearly, I've said that a few times, but you've got the experts here. You've got Andrew, Diana, Sai, Jody, and Larry here talking to you about all of the highlights that they think are important for you to talk about for this release. So this is the number one thing. The number two thing is really thinking, looking down the line, right? Not just thinking about this release, but thinking about the cyclical release cycle, right? Like, you can prepare ahead of time knowing that changes are happening. You can spin up, a pre-release org, which is a great way to get in and tinker and play around with the new release features. That's what I do. I mean, I don't read the release notes until I get in and just start tinkering around with things. And then I go look up the things I'm interested in and I notice. So that's one thing that I like to do. And then, I mean, the great thing is at admin.salesforce.com, my favorite website, we've got tons of great resources. We've got our Learn More blog series that we do for every release. And we've got the amazing Jennifer Lee. She creates the mega blog about all of the great things that she's got her eyes on for the release. So that's a great resource as well. So there's a lot for you. Feel free to read the release notes. There are a lot of them. So the whole idea is we're making it easier for you to consume the changes that you need to know about in the form that is best for you, whether it's joining and watching this, or whether it's, reading the great content that we put out. There are a lot of ways that you can kind of get up to speed. And then again, thinking long-term, right? Especially when we have beta features, pilot features, kind of already using that opportunity to think about where this might play into your instance going forward and how your organization runs. So there you go. It's really hard to see with these on.
Well, that was some amazing information you shared, whether or not you could see through those glasses or not. So thank you, Jillian. Let's wrap up with one more question from the community. I think this one is for you, Diana, from Chica. And the question is, are there any updates to the way to create a record link in the send email action? For example, I'm sending an email notification and I've included a link to the record I want the recipient to navigate to. With an email alert, you're able to add the record link with a merge field.
There are no updates to that. I think there are some ways to probably do some URL hacking would be my guess, but there's no specific function. I think it's a great idea though. So if it's not in the idea exchange, that is something that I think would be a great one to throw in there, because I agree that would be so useful in so many scenarios.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Chica, and everybody who asked us amazing questions today. Again, if we did not get to your question on the broadcast, we will follow up on Twitter or in the Trailblazer community. So thank you for spending some time with us to dive into these Summer 23 release highlights for admins. As Jillian mentioned, we have a great resource for you, our Learn More quests for admins and developers. You can complete a trail mix where we've compiled all of those release resources for you so you can really get started learning about these new release features. And as a special bonus, if you complete one of these trail mixes, you can earn a special community badge. So super exciting. Make sure to check out Learn More at this link on the screen, sforce.co/learn-more, more spelled like roar. Make sure to check that out and complete that trail mix for your special community badge. And with that, I just want to say, again, a huge thank you to all of the awesome admins who tuned in for this broadcast today, and a special thanks to all of our incredible product managers and experts who are here on the broadcast. We really appreciate you spending your time with us today. And thank you again. We look forward to seeing what you build with the Summer 23 release.